My name is Sophia Bennett, and I'm 28 years old. Imagine walking into your office on a Monday morning, the hum of printers and murmurs of coworkers filling the room, when your so-called colleague, Vanessa, loudly announces to everyone that you botched a major client proposal last week. Her smirk stretched across her face like she'd just claimed some twisted trophy. I could feel my cheeks burning as all eyes turned to me, the whispers spreading like wildfire. I had stayed up countless nights perfecting that proposal, and here she was, parading my mistake as if it were her personal victory. I froze, gripping my coffee mug as if it were an anchor. The mix of shame, rage, and disbelief hit me all at once. I wanted to shout, to expose her, but I swallowed it. Any outburst would only play into her hands. I forced a polite smile and turned back to my desk, letting the humiliation simmer. If you want to see how this story unfolds, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for more unbelievable workplace drama stories. In the days that followed, Vanessa made it her mission to shadow my every move, waiting for me to slip up. Her smug confidence felt suffocating. I realized she thrived on publicizing small errors, twisting them into evidence that I was unfit for my position. My reputation began to fracture under her relentless gossip, and I knew I couldn't let this continue. One afternoon, I overheard Vanessa telling our boss, Mr. Whitmore, that I wasn't fit for client-facing roles, and that my mistakes were affecting the team. I felt my stomach drop. I had devoted months to that project, and now Vanessa was poisoning my professional image. It wasn't just unfair, it was cruel. But that anger sparked something inside me. I couldn't confront her directly without risking my career, so I decided to fight smarter, not louder. I started paying closer attention to Vanessa's habits, how she handled emails, what she bragged about, and where she was careless. Each tiny misstep, each boastful remark, became part of a larger picture. I realized that my advantage wasn't in confronting her, it was in strategy and timing. The opportunity came from a part of the office I had previously overlooked, our department's payroll system. I had legitimate access for reporting purposes, and it offered a subtle, indirect way to shift power without exposing myself. My plan wasn't malicious. I wasn't going to destroy her, but I could make her feel the same insecurity she had inflicted on me. That evening, I stayed late, the office quiet except for the soft hum of the air conditioning. I logged into the system and carefully reviewed her records. I made small, strategic adjustments to her reimbursement schedule. Nothing drastic or illegal, just minor delays and flagged discrepancies that would irritate her and make her double-check every submission. Precision and patience were key. I had to ensure my actions remained undetectable. The following week, the results were subtle but satisfying. Vanessa arrived late, fuming over delayed reimbursements, muttering under her breath about the messing up of the payroll. I watched from my desk, silent and composed, letting her frustration reveal itself naturally. I wasn't gloating. This was about reclaiming dignity, about proving that arrogance has consequences. The tension escalated. Meetings became silent battles of glances. Emails became a dance of careful wording, and casual hallway conversations carried the invisible weight of our rivalry. Coworkers noticed the strain but couldn't pinpoint the cause. Behind the scenes, I felt like a chess master, orchestrating every move with quiet precision. Then, the first major break came. In her frustration, Vanessa accidentally sent a sensitive email containing an error to the wrong client. It was a small misstep, but it rattled her confidence. I didn't need to intervene. Her own negligence and pride were beginning to catch up with her. The tables were turning, and I could feel the subtle shift of power in my favor. It dawned on me then that true control wasn't about confrontation or public humiliation. It was about patience, strategy, and understanding where someone's weaknesses lay. Vanessa had underestimated me, assuming my silence equaled submission. From that moment forward, I knew I wasn't just defending myself. I was in control, maneuvering with careful, deliberate moves that she would never see coming. The weeks ahead promised more revelations, more shifts in power, and the satisfying realization that someone who thrived on exposing others could finally feel the weight of accountability. And this was only the beginning. The next few days were a delicate balancing act. I continued my work as usual, smiling politely in meetings, exchanging casual pleasantries in the hallways, all while quietly monitoring Vanessa's every move. She had grown increasingly anxious, double-checking her expense reports and payroll submissions, and it was clear she suspected something, but she couldn't quite figure out what. That subtle unease was intoxicating. It wasn't just about making her uncomfortable. I wanted to regain my confidence, my respect in the office, and slowly, I could feel it returning. The whispers that once followed me now began to lose their bite. Colleagues who had been silently siding with her were beginning to notice the cracks in her polished exterior. One afternoon, during a routine team meeting, Vanessa made a bold attempt to undermine me again. She subtly criticized a report I had submitted, her words dripping with condescension. The room tensed, all eyes on me, waiting for my reaction. But this time, I didn't flinch. I calmly explained my methodology, backing every point with clear data and concise reasoning. The room stayed silent, but this time it was her who looked small, unsure, faltering mid-sentence. After the meeting, I watched as she retreated to her desk, muttering about impossible coworkers and incompetent systems. I could see her shoulders slump slightly, a rare break in her armor. My small interventions with the payroll system had started to erode her confidence, and now her arrogance was giving way to uncertainty. I kept my adjustments subtle, never making changes that would trigger alarms or invite suspicion. Instead, I let her anxiety grow naturally. Every delay in her reimbursement, every flagged discrepancy, added weight to her insecurities. She began checking her work obsessively, often asking junior colleagues for confirmation and second opinions. The office that once seemed like her playground was slowly becoming mine. One evening, I stayed behind to finish some reports. The office was empty, quiet except for the hum of computers. I noticed Vanessa rushing in, looking flustered. She muttered about missing approvals and errors she couldn't understand. I felt a mix of vindication and empathy. She was human, just like me. It wasn't cruelty that motivated me. It was justice. A way to show her that actions have consequences. The tension between us reached its peak during the monthly client review. Vanessa had taken the lead in presenting a crucial project update, but her nerves betrayed her. She stumbled over figures, skipped key points, and even mispronounced client names. I stayed silent, resisting the urge to intervene. Colleagues exchanged awkward glances, but I remained composed, allowing her mistakes to speak for themselves. Afterward, our manager called me into his office. I braced myself for a reprimand, but instead, he praised my professionalism and attention to detail. "Sophia, your reports are thorough, and your approach under pressure is impressive," he said. I smiled, feeling the weight of months of tension lift slightly. He didn't mention Vanessa's errors, but I knew the contrast was evident. My diligence was shining through while hers was crumbling under scrutiny. I began noticing other subtle shifts in office dynamics. Vanessa, once the center of attention, started getting fewer opportunities to lead projects. Junior colleagues who had once avoided my side began seeking my guidance, asking for input and advice. It was a quiet reclamation of authority, a reversal of roles that gave me a sense of empowerment I had never experienced before. Yet, I remained careful. I didn't want her to suspect outright that I had orchestrated her discomfort. Every adjustment I made in the payroll system, every strategic oversight, was calculated to be just enough to sow doubt without raising alarms. Watching her flounder subtly reinforced my understanding that power isn't just about what you say or do. It's about perception. The real turning point came when Vanessa, overwhelmed by her mounting anxieties, accidentally sent a confidential internal document to the wrong client. Panic set in immediately, She stormed into my workspace, eyes wide, voice trembling, demanding help to correct the mistake. I listened calmly, my expression neutral, offering professional guidance without a hint of condescension. Internally, I felt a surge of quiet satisfaction. She had come to me for help, the very person she had tried to humiliate months ago. That night, as I reviewed the week's payroll adjustments, I realized how much I had learned. Patience, observation, and careful strategy had given me control without a single explosive confrontation. Vanessa's arrogance had been her weakness, and I had exploited it in the most subtle, professional way possible. I wasn't just surviving in the office anymore. I was thriving. The story was far from over. Vanessa was still present, still aware, but the balance of power had shifted irrevocably. I felt a sense of calm determination. Every small victory, every subtle maneuver, brought me closer to reclaiming my professional life fully. And deep down, I knew the final lessons had yet to unfold. The moments that would fully cement my position and show Vanessa that underestimating someone comes at a cost. The following month was when everything began to unravel. For her. Vanessa's energy had changed. The woman who once strutted into the office with unshakable confidence now arrived looking drained, eyes shadowed, and posture tense. Her sharp, sarcastic remarks were replaced by awkward silence and nervous laughter. It was as if the queen of the office had suddenly forgotten how to wear her crown. I'd be lying if I said I didn't enjoy the irony. But at the same time, I couldn't help but feel an odd sympathy. Watching someone who used to humiliate me crumble wasn't as satisfying as I'd imagined. It was sobering. Yet the logical part of me reminded myself, she brought this on herself. It all started with an internal audit. The company had decided to tighten its expense policies after a few irregularities were found in other departments. Everyone had to submit reports for review. For most of us, it was just a formality. But for Vanessa, it was chaos. I remember standing by the coffee machine when she got the email. She froze, her face paling as she reread it. Her voice trembled when she muttered, "An audit? Seriously?" I turned slightly, pretending not to listen, though my heart raced. I knew what this meant. The small adjustments I had made, those slight reimbursement delays, those flagged discrepancies, would now draw attention. Over the next few days, Vanessa was in constant panic mode. She hovered near the finance office, frantically double-checking every entry, trying to fix what she didn't understand. Her stress showed, snapping at interns, skipping lunch, even breaking down in the bathroom once when she thought no one was watching. And through it all, I maintained my calm. I offered polite smiles, small reassurances, acting as though I had no idea what she was going through. Inside, I was torn between guilt and vindication. During one particularly tense morning, our manager, Mr. Whitmore, called Vanessa into his office. The blinds were half closed, but I could see her pacing inside, gesturing frantically, while he sat with arms crossed, his expression cold. 30 minutes later, she walked out, her face pale, eyes red. She didn't speak to anyone. Later, I heard the whispers. Her reimbursements had been frozen pending review. The discrepancies had been flagged as non-compliance, and she'd have to provide documentation for every cent. It was the first time in years that the office gossip wasn't about me. It was about her. But I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. I knew the satisfaction lay not in her downfall, but in the quiet acknowledgement that I had taken back my power. A week later, Mr. Whitmore approached me unexpectedly. "Sophia," he said, "you've shown remarkable organization with your financial reports. I'm impressed. We're expanding the finance oversight team, and I'd like you to take the lead on it." I blinked, speechless. "Me? Are you sure?" He smiled. "You've earned it. You're precise, reliable, and you keep things running smoothly. It's about time you were recognized for it." As his words sank in, my pulse quickened. The promotion wasn't just validation. It was poetic justice. I accepted the offer, thanking him with as much professionalism as I could muster, though inside I was trembling with disbelief and pride. That evening, I stayed behind to finalize some documents in my new role. My new responsibilities included reviewing payroll and approvals. As I scrolled through the system, my eyes fell on Vanessa's name. I paused, the irony almost too perfect. Her paychecks, her reimbursements, her bonuses, all of them now required my final approval. The girl who once bragged about my mistakes now depended on my signature to get paid. The moment felt surreal. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the screen, letting it sink in. I hadn't planned for this level of revenge, but fate had delivered it anyway. Over the next few weeks, Vanessa grew noticeably quieter. She avoided me in meetings, her tone polite but distant. The others noticed too. She was no longer the dominant voice in the room. Her projects were reassigned, her influence diminished. Sometimes I caught her looking at me, eyes filled with something between resentment and disbelief. I could almost hear the question in her mind. How did Sophia end up above me? I didn't flaunt it. I didn't need to. My silence spoke louder than any gloating ever could. Still, part of me wondered if I'd gone too far. Late at night, I'd replay the events in my mind. The humiliation she caused, the pain, the late nights crying out of frustration. Then I'd remember her smirk, her laughter at my expense, and the balance felt right again. But I knew this wasn't over. Vanessa was too prideful to accept defeat quietly. There was something brewing behind her forced smiles and polite words. I could feel it. And I was right. One Friday evening, as I packed my things, I received an email from HR titled, "Urgent Payroll Anomaly Investigation." My stomach dropped. Had she found something? Had she reported me? The timing was too perfect to be coincidence. I clicked the email open, my hands trembling slightly as I began to read. Whatever this was, it could change everything. I stared at the email on my screen, my heart thudding so loudly it drowned out the sounds of the empty office. Subject: Payroll Anomaly Investigation. From HR Department. Message: An internal review has flagged several irregularities in payroll adjustments. We'd like to schedule a brief discussion with you on Monday morning to clarify these issues. My hands went cold. My throat tightened. I sat there for a long moment, frozen. This couldn't be happening. I had been so careful. Every adjustment, every detail was subtle, precise. How could anything have been flagged? I forced myself to breathe. Slowly, deeply. There had to be another explanation. Maybe it was a routine check, something random, like the audit that had scared Vanessa weeks earlier. I told myself that over and over, trying to calm my racing thoughts. But the uneasy feeling in my gut refused to fade. When I finally left the office, the city lights outside blurred through my teary eyes. I had fought so hard to reclaim control, to rise above the humiliation Vanessa put me through. And now, it felt like the universe was ready to snatch it all away. That weekend was torture. Every time my phone buzzed, my stomach clenched, expecting another email. I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying every single thing I'd done in the payroll system, every flagged reimbursement, every adjustment, every line of code and note. Had I missed something? Left a trail? By Monday morning, I looked like I hadn't slept in days. When I arrived at work, the HR representative, Ms. Clark, was waiting for me in a small glass conference room. Her tone was polite but firm. "Good morning, Sophia. Please, have a seat." I sat down, palms damp, heart pounding. She slid a few printed documents across the table. "We've noticed some irregular patterns in expense approvals and reimbursement schedules. You've handled several of these, correct?" "Yes," I said, my voice barely steady. "That's part of my job responsibilities." She nodded, flipping through the papers. "Of course. But there are inconsistencies. Small changes made to certain accounts, most of them belonging to one individual. Would you like to explain that?" My stomach twisted. One individual. Vanessa. I believe those were flagged automatically, I stammered. Sometimes the system misreads receipts, or if documentation is late. She studied me carefully, her eyes sharp and analytical. I see. It's possible. But we'll need to verify everything. For now, this isn't a disciplinary matter, just a clarification. Her words were gentle, but the implication was clear. They were watching me. I left the room with a hollow feeling in my chest. The walls seemed to close in. Every face I passed on the way back to my desk felt like it was studying me. Even Vanessa's. She was standing by the printer, her arms crossed, that familiar smirk tugging at her lips. So, she said casually, heard HR's doing some digging in payroll. Sounds serious. Her voice was laced with false concern, but her eyes sparkled with satisfaction. I forced a smile. Just a routine check. You know how audits are. She tilted her head. Of course. Still, I hope they don't find anything interesting. That last word, interesting, hung in the air like poison. I walked past her without another word, but inside I was shaking. She knew. Somehow she knew. The next few days were agonizing. HR continued their review, asking small follow-up questions, each one chipping away at my confidence. My work piled up, my concentration faltered, and I could feel the whispers starting again. It was like reliving the nightmare I thought I'd escaped. But then, something unexpected happened. On Wednesday afternoon, Mr. Whitmore called me into his office, not to reprimand me, but to thank me. He told me HR had found the source of the discrepancies, an outdated reporting script in the payroll system that had automatically duplicated a few line items. The investigation had cleared my name completely. Relief washed over me so suddenly that my knees almost buckled. But the twist didn't end there. Apparently, the audit had also revealed that Vanessa had been submitting overlapping reimbursement claims, charging both the company and clients for the same expenses. It wasn't massive fraud, but it was serious enough to warrant disciplinary action. Mr. Whitmore's expression was tight as he said, "We'll be addressing it formally. I appreciate your patience and cooperation, Sophia. I know this must have been stressful." I nodded, barely able to speak. Inside, my emotions were a hurricane: relief, disbelief, and a deep, poetic sense of justice. By Friday, Vanessa's desk was empty. She had been placed on temporary leave pending further investigation. The same people who used to laugh at her jokes now avoided her name entirely. The silence she left behind felt peaceful. I sat at my desk that evening, the hum of the computer steady, the office quiet. As I reviewed the week's payroll, my eyes once again landed on her name, this time marked inactive account. I exhaled slowly, letting the weight of the past few months finally lift from my shoulders. My revenge hadn't been perfect. It had been messy, risky, and emotionally exhausting. But in the end, the truth had balanced the scales in a way I never could have planned. I didn't need to control her paychecks anymore, because fate had already done it for me. And for the first time in a long time, I smiled, not out of triumph, but out of peace. For the first time in months, the office felt calm. No whispers behind my back, no sarcastic remarks during meetings, no passive-aggressive emails disguised as feedback. Vanessa's absence changed everything. The atmosphere felt lighter, freer. People laughed more, spoke openly, and for once my work was being noticed for its quality, not overshadowed by someone else's ego. But peace, I've learned, rarely lasts. 2 weeks after Vanessa was placed on leave, rumors began to swirl again. Some said she was planning to appeal the decision. Others claimed she had evidence that someone inside the company had set her up. My chest tightened every time I heard her name. I tried to focus on my work, telling myself she couldn't possibly know the truth. I had been too careful, too precise, and yet, deep down, something didn't feel right. One Friday afternoon, I was in the break room pouring coffee when Daniel, a junior analyst, approached me. "Hey, Sophia," he said, hesitating. "I thought you should know. Vanessa's been talking to a few people outside the office. She's trying to figure out who messed with her numbers. She even mentioned your name." My stomach dropped. "What? Why would she?" He shrugged uncomfortably. "I don't know. She said you were the only one with consistent access to payroll reports. She's convinced someone wanted her out." I forced a laugh. "That's ridiculous. The audit cleared everything." Daniel nodded, but the look in his eyes said he wasn't entirely convinced. That night, as I drove home, the city lights flickering across my windshield, I couldn't shake the growing fear in my gut. Vanessa was vindictive. And worse, she was clever. If she was digging, it was only a matter of time before she stumbled onto something. The next morning, I woke up to a message on my phone. "Unknown number. You think you won, didn't you?" I froze. My hands trembled as I scrolled. Another message came seconds later. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." My blood ran cold. It had to be her. I wanted to believe it was a bluff, a desperate attempt to intimidate me. But the timing was too perfect. She was angry, humiliated, and now she was lashing out. That weekend, I couldn't focus on anything. Every sound made me jump. Every notification made my heart race. By Monday, I tried to push through it, pretending nothing was wrong. But the tension was thick in the air. When I entered the office, a few coworkers looked at me strangely, whispering among themselves. I caught bits and pieces of their conversation. HR, complaint, anonymous tip. I felt the blood drain from my face. Around noon, my manager called me in. His expression was unreadable. "Close the door, Sophia." I obeyed, trying to steady my breathing. He folded his hands on the desk. "I received something troubling this morning. HR got an anonymous email accusing you of manipulating payroll records and targeting Vanessa." My heart stopped. He continued, "Now, I know you've been nothing but professional since day one, but HR will have to reopen the case. Just procedure." I couldn't even speak. My mouth went dry, my pulse roaring in my ears. After I left his office, I walked straight to the restroom, locked the door, and stared at my reflection in the mirror. My face was pale, my eyes wide with panic. I had fought so hard to rebuild myself, to prove my worth, and now it was all crashing down again. I leaned against the sink, whispering to myself, "You can fix this. You can fix this." But deep inside, I knew Vanessa wouldn't stop until she got what she wanted: revenge. That evening, after most of the staff had left, I sat at my desk, scrolling through old emails and records, trying to find anything that could disprove her claims. But then I found something else, a message buried deep in the system's logs. It was from weeks ago, before she left, a digital trace from Vanessa's account, accessing restricted payroll data she was never authorized to see. My heart skipped a beat. She had been digging even then. Maybe she hadn't found concrete proof, but she was trying to. And now she was using that partial information to spin her own narrative, to make me look guilty before the company could realize the truth. I sat back, closing my eyes. I had two choices: stay quiet and hope HR believed me again, or take matters into my own hands once more. My mind began to race. If I could gather evidence showing she had tampered with the system herself, even just once, it would clear me completely. But doing that meant crossing another line. I hesitated, staring at the glowing monitor. The very system that had once been my weapon was now a ticking time bomb, and if Vanessa was truly coming for me, I'd have to decide fast whether to fight back or walk away before everything exploded. That night, I stayed in the office long after everyone had gone home. The only light came from my monitor, casting a faint glow across the papers scattered on my desk. The silence was heavy, pressing against me as I hovered over the payroll database, fingers trembling above the keyboard. Vanessa had crossed the line first. She'd twisted my silence into guilt and my success into suspicion. I'd spent months reclaiming my dignity, my career, and my confidence. I wasn't going to let her take that away again. But this time, I wouldn't fight with manipulation or quiet revenge. I was going to expose her, with truth. I began tracing her digital footprint in the system logs. It wasn't easy, but after hours of combing through archived data, I found it. Multiple unauthorized access attempts tied to her credentials. She had used an outdated admin password from months before the system update, one that was supposed to have been deleted. The timestamps aligned perfectly with the days she had been questioning her reimbursements. She had tried to spy on the payroll reports to find out if I'd done something to her, but in doing so, she had broken several data compliance policies. I sat back, staring at the screen, my heart pounding. It was over. I had the proof. The next morning, I printed everything: system logs, access timestamps, and a copy of the data trail. I placed it neatly into a folder and walked straight to HR. Ms. Clark looked up from her desk as I entered. "Sophia? Back again?" "Yes," I said firmly. "I think it's time you saw something." As she skimmed through the documents, her expression shifted from curiosity to disbelief. "These access attempts, they came from Vanessa's login?" I nodded. "She was trying to monitor payroll behind the scenes. That's probably why she filed the complaint, because she found traces she didn't understand." Ms. Clark exhaled slowly. "This changes everything." Within an hour, HR launched a follow-up review. They confirmed what I already knew. Vanessa had violated company data policy. And worse, she had attempted to alter her own reimbursement records right before her suspension, presumably to cover up inconsistencies. When the news broke, the office buzzed with shock. By the end of the week, Vanessa's employment was terminated permanently. She didn't go quietly. Before she left, she confronted me in the parking lot. It was raining, gray skies, cold wind, the kind of setting you'd expect at the end of a storm that had raged too long. She approached, her hair damp, her expression unreadable. "So it was you," she said softly, almost a whisper. "You think you won?" I looked at her, not with anger, not with triumph, but with something deeper. Pity. "I didn't need to win, Vanessa," I said. "You did this to yourself." Her lips trembled, her eyes narrowing with bitterness. "You ruined me." I shook my head slowly. "No, you ruined yourself when you made enemies instead of allies." For a long moment, we stood there in silence, the rain falling between us like a wall. Then she turned away, her heels splashing through puddles, disappearing into the gray distance. As I watched her go, I felt an unexpected emotion rising. Not joy, not revenge, but peace. It was over. Truly over. In the weeks that followed, things finally began to settle. HR publicly commended me for my transparency and professionalism during the investigation. Mr. Whitmore even mentioned me for a senior position in the finance division, a role I never imagined I'd earn. But the real victory wasn't the title or the recognition. It was walking into that office each morning without fear, without someone waiting to humiliate me, without the constant weight of being undermined. I learned something powerful through all of it. Sometimes revenge isn't about destruction. It's about balance, about reclaiming the respect someone tried to take from you, not by becoming them, but by proving you were stronger all along. And as I sat in my new office one quiet evening, reviewing the latest payroll approvals, I saw the empty space where Vanessa's name used to be. I smiled faintly, then closed the report. Justice didn't always come in flames and fury. Sometimes it came quietly, through patience, truth, and a little poetic irony. And in the end, the woman who once bragged about my mistakes now had to live with her own. End.